For this, more people would need to be employed, so to produce the goods and services, this would decrease the overall unemployment level. So we've got a reduction in unemployment as being the benefit here. As more people are actively in work contributing towards the economy. This would mean the government would have more money to spend, as there would be less of a strain on the benefit system. I think a specific example would be needed here in terms of unemployment benefits, such as job seekers allowance, potentially for an EO2 mark there. The average income per household was increased with a larger disposable income in general. This would mean that more people will be able to consume goods and services, which they weren't able to do before due to lack of finance. An increase in the purchase of goods would mean that the greater standard of living within the economy would increase. What could be used at this point, or should be used, is an aggregate demand and supply diagram with the increase in aggregate demand and the Y on the Y-axis, which is going to be referred to in a second, highlighted. So we've got greater standard of living. This would increase consumer expenditure, shifting AD to the right. So we've got reference to the graph, AO3, causing short-term economic growth. I would save the long-term part for now, so just keep with aggregate demand. However, if the AD curve shifts more to the right than the AS curve, this could cause cost-push inflation. The definition that you've got there, the rate of increase in AD being greater than the rate in case of AS, would be demand pull inflation. So again, just a little accuracy around the type of inflation, whereby the price level increases from P to P1, and the real GDP also increases. This would mean in the long term, the relative amount of money people will have would decrease. This sentence here, the relative amount of money people would have would decrease, needs to be reworded. So the amount of money you have might actually be increasing, but the purchasing power of your money is reducing, as the price of goods increases at a faster rate than the increase in your wages. This would lead to people back in their original position they were in terms of standard living when increasing for a short period of time. So we've got the negative there. We've got two sides, so we've got also a little bit of AO4 in terms of marks. This all relies on the unemployment level going down, which may however not occur. A rise in economic growth that means the economy is producing more in the long term, which could be down to better technology or being able to utilise economies of scale, and therefore unemployment levels may not decrease. That's a nice AO4 point in terms of it being what we call capital intensive production, or capital intensive economic growth. So that would improve that a little bit, but that's some good application to a bit of evaluation there on what the growth depends upon. So we've got quite a balanced argument so far. The essay goes on to say, as well as a smaller drain on the benefit system, the government is likely to gain from the increase in economic growth. If AD increases for a short-term economic growth, it is likely that this will be due to consumer spending. A rise in consumer expenditure is likely to reduce from a higher income. Both goods and higher income will be taxed, increase the amount of finance the government has. If economic growth is a result of an increase in productive capacity, then this signals the businesses are expanding or selling more goods. This part here is repeating the analysis that's already been done in a slightly different way, but it's not going to add any additional marks because you've already been credited for the benefit of taxes for the government. It does say here businesses are taxed through corporation tax, which goes to the government, meaning the overall amount of the government will significantly increase. Again, that's a similar analysis that you've already been credited for. This can be spent on areas need in education, healthcare, of a country on public goods and infrastructure. All spending will contribute towards aggregate demand, shifting it further, causing short-term economic growth and possibly a multiplier effect. This multiplier effect, I think, would improve the economy as if it was used as an it depends upon point. So it depends upon the size of the multiplier. It's a very nice size wee step, because if it is a large multiplier, then it's likely that the economic growth rate will be greater as well. So if there is further multipliers in the economy, the aggregate demand will shift further, and there will be more increases in incomes and standard of living rather than just the initial one. So I think that it's too closely linked to what you've got before. But I think in terms of the public goods argument, I think that's credited, but also from potentially you could link this into a supply side effect as well, which I think then would be a bit more relevant to gain the marks. The next paragraph talks about after the increase in the selling of goods and services will increase profits of companies. So we've got an increase in profits as being a benefit. This will incentivise them to increase their investment back into the business in order to make and create more retained profits. This will create a multiplier effect where the initial injection of finance will cause it to slowly keep expanding. The multiplier effect occurs between different parts of the circular flow of income, not just within a business. So the phrase here would have to talk about money moving between households and firms and the low leakages keeping this going. So I think there's a bit of extra clarity around the multiplier here. Businesses, however, gain large profits during a time in economic growth and often gain millions of pounds worth of profits. This creates income inequality whereby the big businesses are getting much richer, but the unemployed, which aren't benefiting from the economic growth, are becoming relatively poorer as they're feeling the effects of inflation. Yes, income inequality is a key negative, but it's the reason why it's a negative. One thing is it can affect the Harrod-Domer model as savings may be low. So domestic savings may be low. It may also cause increases in debt levels, which can lead to further instability, or it can hold back aggregate supply as they are not able to, that workforce aren't able to kind of upskill or improve the productive potential of the economy themselves. So I think that negative of income inequality would need detail of why it's a negative for a country, not just that income inequality occurs. I've got a bit of evaluation here. However, this all depends upon the size of economic growth. If the economic growth is minimal, then big corporations are unlikely to reinvest in the business because the profits as a result won't be large enough to cover the costs. Small economic growth is also unlikely to change unemployment figure and therefore not raise the standard of living within the economy. The implications of long-term economic growth are as long-term and unlikely to benefit the economy in the future. It sometimes takes many months or years for benefits to trickle down from the growth to the business, to the consumer and back into the economy. Confidence within the economy is also a very key factor in benefits, which will be caused if consumers do not believe that the growth, their new job will last, then additional income will be saved, which is a leakage out of the circular flow. Additionally, if businesses don't believe that economic growth will last, they won't invest back into the economy, stopping further jobs creation. There is an essential argument here, but it's lower level AO4, which is around stability of growth in the long term, and linking this back into business investment through confidence and consumer and business confidence. It's a good link back to saying that it would reduce leakages because less money would be saved, but the link with the confidence would be better linked to stability, and then that would increase the size of multipliers, and I think that's a better argument to make to gain those marks. The essay is a little bit unbalanced in terms of the negatives, so it could be that there's one other negative here, like a negative externality or something like that, or something around it depends upon what happens to aggregate supply and why long-term economic growth using the graph is better than short-term economic growth, and that can be linked into that stability argument, so that the stability of the price level is key in terms of maintaining investment, stable price level, and rising incomes over time. So I think that last question out of 18 is probably 13 or 14 out of 18. The rest of the marks will come from not repeating the same analysis, using that time to add maybe a negative externality argument, and then looking at the stability of growth and it being long-term economic growth being better than short-term. And I think that would take that up another couple of marks.